Hello, you are on the Adventure Compass channel. Today we are going to Venice. It is not just a city, it is a dream, a reflection in the water, a labyrinth of canals and bridges, where every street breathes history and romance. In this video, we will not chase time. We will just try to feel this city, get lost in its beauty, learn its secrets, and share with you what makes Venice so special. Let's start with St. Mark's Square. This is the heart of Venice, its pulse. It is always bustling with life. Tourists from all over the world gather here, pigeons live here, which have become an integral part of this place. In addition to being the most spacious place in the entire floating town, the square is very majestic and romantic, which is why it is one of the most popular tourist spots in Italy. There are so many interesting objects here that it can take a whole day to get to know them all. St. Mark's Square is famous not only for its outstanding architecture, but also for being the location for numerous films. And this is not surprising, the space and special atmosphere allow you to shoot fascinating shots here. In 1777, the square acquired its current dimensions. Today, St. Mark's Square has the shape of a trapezoid with a length of 175 meters, a width of 82 meters in the wide part, and 56 meters in the narrow part. The abundance of must-sees in St. Mark's Square alone could easily beat the envy of a mid-sized European city. Here are the columns of St. Mark and St. Theodore, the magnificent Doge's Palace, St. Mark's Basilica with the clock tower of the same name, as well as the old and new Procuratie, the Napoleon Wing, and, finally, the outstanding library, as you might have guessed, also named after the apostle. The locals call this square respectfully Piazza. All other areas are called more modestly Campo. Conventionally, the space of the square is divided into two sections. Piazzetta, a kind of corridor that goes from the Grand Canal past the Doge's Palace and the Library of San Marco to the Campanile, and the piazza itself the rest of the square. The main attraction of the square is the Basilica of St. Mark, the Cathedral of Venice, which gave the square its name. Until 1807, the cathedral was the court chapel of the Doge's Palace. The two columns are the true gates of Venice, very tall and majestic, with two patron saints on their tops, the ancient Theodore and the more recent Mark, in the form of a winged lion. According to legend, the columns were brought from Egypt in 1125 during one of the Crusades. Initially, there were three of them, but during unloading, one unfortunately slipped into the water and ended up on the muddy bottom, with no chance of being raised. Transportation from the sea was only the beginning of the problems. No one could straighten them because of their enormous weight. They lay like two sleeping giants for more than 50 years, until the brilliant engineer Niccolò Barattiero found a simple and clever way to lift them, using wet ropes and giant wedges, so that they finally soared majestically and impressively upward. As compensation, the insightful genius was given the opportunity to manage a gambling den between the two columns, which made him much richer. Later, public executions took place between them. For this reason, local residents believed that one should not pass between them, so as not to bring trouble. When you are near the columns, take a close look at the statues of St. Theodore and the Lion of St. Mark that stand on them. Like a puzzle, St. Theodore is made up of elements from different eras. The head probably comes from a statue of the Pontic King Mithridates, the torso with the cuirass from a Roman statue. The legs and iron weapons were made by Venetian craftsmen almost 1,000 years later, as were the crocodile or dragon at the feet of the saint. The same can be said about the lion. This bronze statue was most likely not created as the Lion of St. Mark, but is a very ancient image of a chimera. Its origins are probably Etruscan, Persian, or Chinese. This statue was once gilded, and must have looked truly magnificent in the rays of the sun. The result of such artistic mixtures is fascinating, and few people notice them, like many other things in Venice. St. Mark's Basilica is a magnificent temple decorated with mosaics that tell biblical stories. St. Mark's Basilica is the religious center of Venice and the most visited temple in the city. It is also one of the oldest. The construction of the building was completed in 832. The temple was built specifically for the relics of St. Mark the Apostle, the patron saint of Venice and the Venetians. St. Mark's Cathedral was founded in the 9th century and received its current appearance by the end of the 15th century. Inside are the relics of the Apostle Mark, the heads of the Apostles James and Titus, the icon of the Mother of God Nicopoeia, and the relics of the martyr Isidore. There are even more aesthetic features in it: magnificent gate mosaics, flying domes, the quadriga of St. Mark, tetrarchs, etc. Well, the real pearls of the interior decoration are the dome mosaics on biblical themes. It was first built in 828, but over time it has undergone many changes, the most significant of which was the restoration in 1231 after a devastating fire. The new construction of the cathedral on the Byzantine model, the Constantinople Church of the 12 Apostles, was begun in 1063, and in 1094 the cathedral was consecrated. Over the next centuries the cathedral was decorated and expanded. Every foreign ship that came to the port had to present a precious gift to the cathedral. Many relics ended up in the church after the sack of Constantinople by the Crusaders in 1204. The Cathedral of San Marco became the religious and political center of the Venetian Republic. Grand official ceremonies were held in the cathedral: the coronation and presentation of the new doge to the citizens, the blessing of troops before the war, in particular before the Fourth Crusade. Here Captain Marco Polo received his blessing before sailing. The cathedral was built and completed over more than 4 centuries. This affected the architectural style. The cathedral is a harmonious mixture of eras and styles. The Basilica of San Marco is conventionally divided into 3 levels: the lower level, the terrace, and the domes. Moreover, the width of the cathedral prevails over the height, since it is more stable on sandy soil. The building of the cathedral is built in the form of a Greek cross with dimensions of 76.5 meters by 60.5 meters. The height of the central dome is 43 meters. The interior of the church is represented by a variety of iconostasis, statues of the apostles, and numerous mosaics. The interior of the cathedral amazes with its magnificence and luxurious decoration. The walls and ceilings of the basilica are covered with amazing gilded Byzantine mosaics depicting scenes from the Holy Scriptures. Nowadays, the Basilica of San Marco is a functioning church where services are held, and such relics as the relics of St. Mark, the relics of the martyr Isidore, the image of the Virgin Mary Nicopoeia make the Basilica of San Marco a center of Christian pilgrimage. The Doge's Palace is the former residence of the Venetian rulers, a symbol of the power and wealth of the Venetian Republic. One of the symbols of Venice, this bizarre masterpiece of Gothic architecture served as the residence of Venetian rulers for centuries until Napoleon occupied the Republic in the 18th century. The first version of this building was erected back in 810. Since then, the building has been rebuilt several times until it acquired its current appearance in the 16th century. The beautiful three-story palace adjoins the Basilica of San Marco and complements the amazing architectural ensemble of the elegant square. The construction lasted for over a century, from 1309 to 1424. However, the already implemented project was constantly amended, so the building was constantly being completed and improved. In addition, at the end of the 16th century, there was a serious fire, due to which it was necessary to completely rebuild the southern wing of the palace. The building acquired its final appearance, which has survived to this day, only in the 14th century. The unique palace ensemble combines three architectural styles at once: Renaissance, Gothic and Moorish. The open-air first floor supports the upper floors with its arches, which visually creates the impression of a building hovering in the air. For centuries, the building served the government of the Republic, and today it houses a museum. It was here that council meetings were held, ministries worked, and the court heard cases. The path to the top starts from the Golden Staircase. Under the roof of the palace, the Hall of the Great Council was built, unique and the first in size in the world, whose vaults do not rest on anything. The list of authors of the paintings from the Hall of the Great Council is decorated with the names of famous painters: Francesco Bassano, Jacopo Palma, Tintoretto, Veronese. You can see with your own eyes a collection of portraits of the centuries-old dynasty of Doges in the exposition of the hall for voting. In the middle of it rises a triumphal arch, created to honor Francesco Morosini, famous for his victory over the Turks. The museum opens its treasures to anyone who wants to get to know them. Here are presented paintings, sculptures, unique examples of medieval decoration. All this is provided with a lot of amazing details. Visit the most magnificent building of the most romantic city in Europe and you will fall in love with this place filled with living history forever. The Renaissance building of the Marciana Library stands opposite the Doge's Palace, and its facade faces the Grand Canal. The building is decorated with sculptural exhibits and decorative stucco, and the library itself is famous for its rich history and unique collection of ancient books and manuscripts, more than 13,000 valuable manuscripts. Among the book treasures stored here are copies of the Iliad from the 5th and 6th centuries and the first book published in Venice. Today, the library bears the name of St. Mark and is deservedly considered the largest collection of classical texts on the planet. Here you can see the oldest Italian manuscripts and more. The collection carefully stores over 13,000 handwritten books and papers, and the number of books dating back to the 16th century is estimated at over 27,000. At one time, books from those monasteries that were closed by Napoleon came here. The museum has been given such relics for safekeeping as the originals of Francesco Cavalli's notes, the Gonzaga family code, and Marco Polo's will. Marciano was the first to introduce the practice of including copies of all books published in the country in its repositories. A special law was passed in 1603 for this purpose. The design and construction of the library building was carried out by Jacopo Sansovino in 1537, and 10 years later the grandiose construction was completed by Vincenzo Scamozzi. The decoration was done by such famous artists as Veronese, Meldalla and Salviati. Only 2 days a year are the library doors closed to visitors. These are December 25th and January 1st. The rest of the time, you can visit it daily from 10 o'clock to 17 o'clock from November to March and from 10 o'clock to 19 o'clock from April to October. The Campanile of St. Mark's Cathedral was built in the 9th century opposite the temple and is one of the iconic landmarks of Venice. At its top is a statue of the Archangel Gabriel with its wings spread wide. There is also an observation deck there, which offers a magnificent panorama of the square and the entire city. If Venice is threatened by flooding, a red lantern lights up on its facade. The grandiose bell tower rises 99 meters above St. Mark's Square. The history of this structure dates back to the 9th century, but the original building collapsed in 1902 and was restored 10 years later. The bell tower had 5 bells, each of which had its own purpose. For example, one of them was intended to call residents to go to work. Inside there is a through shaft with stairs. Originally built in the 13th and 16th centuries, it was also used as a lighthouse for Venetian merchants and sailors. Having risen to the top of the Campanile of San Marco by elevator, you can feel the spirit of Venice and admire its stunning beauty from a bird's-eye view. Many guests of the city want to find themselves at the top of the tower, often forming long queues. Therefore, we advise you to buy a ticket in advance to save precious time for visiting other attractions. The old and new procurati, which border St. Mark's Square on both sides, were the residence of the Venetian magistrates during the time of the Venetian Republic. These buildings frame St. Mark's Square in its western part, decorating it with elegant arcades. They once housed the procurators, whose main task was to manage state real estate. Since the building of St. Mark's Cathedral was on the controlled list, the procurati was built right next to the shrine. The old procurati was built first in the 16th century and occupies the northern wing. The new procurati on the southern side was built between 1583 and 1640 and was later used as the royal palace during Napoleon's reign. It currently houses the museums of St. Mark's Square, the Archaeological Museum, the Cora Museum and the Marciana Library. Since 1720, the porticos of this building have housed the Café Florian, one of the oldest cafes in Italy. Famous people such as Giacomo Casanova, Carlo Galdani and Lord Byron have frequented it. The new procuracy in the central part was built from 1810 to 1830 on the orders of Napoleon's stepson Eugene de Beauharnais. The purpose of the construction was to decorate the royal palace with a huge ballroom, the most beautiful in Europe, whose windows overlooked St. Mark's Square. Well, to get to know the procuracy better, visit the Cora Museum, where art objects related to the history of the Venetian Republic are exhibited, and the Imperial Rooms, where Princess Sissi and other royals stayed. And after, don't miss out on a visit to the Empire-style cafeteria at the museum, from whose windows you can enjoy a wonderful panoramic view of the entire Piazza San Marco. The Orologio Tower decorated the square at the end of the 15th century. The tower's facade features a large antique astronomical clock, covered in gilding and enamel and decorated with the signs of the zodiac. It not only displays 24 hours, but also shows the position of the planets, as well as the sun and moon in the zodiac. A statue of the Virgin Mary looks down on us from a small niche above the dial. And at the very top, the San Marco clock tower is crowned with giant bronze figures that strike the bell with a hammer every hour. Interestingly, the tower was built in a record-breaking time for that time, within a year, from 1496 to 1497. At the top of the tower are two bronze statues of the Moors, so named because of the dark coating, identifying shepherds. The clock strikes the time twice. The first time, 2 minutes before the exact time, the Moor strikes, an old man with the beard on the right personifying the past. And 2 minutes later, the young Moor on the left personifying the future strikes the exact time, thus symbolizing the past and the future. A little lower you can see a lion with an open book, the symbol of Venice. Even lower, the Virgin Mary with the baby Christ. And finally, a luxurious blue and gold clock with 24 divisions, richly decorated with enamel and gilding. You can also find out the current zodiac sign and the phase of the moon from the clock. Twice a year, on the days of the Epiphany and Ascension of the Lord, an angel and the Magi appear on the clock in the upper gallery, paying homage to the statue of the Virgin Mary before disappearing through the opposite door. The tower can be visited any day from Thursday to Monday with a guided tour in English, French, or Italian upon prior booking, selecting the language and date, time on the calendar. Previously, there was a stable next to the bell tower. However, by order of the Doge, it was demolished in 1540 and Laghetto was erected in its place. The structure looks like a triumphal arch, but its purpose in different eras was different. Laghetto was used as a venue for ceremonial events, the headquarters of the city lottery and the guardhouse of the Doge's palace. Unfortunately, due to the collapse of the Campanile, the Laghetto was completely destroyed in 1902. Today, tourists can enjoy the view of a restored version that is as close to the original as possible. It is important to remember that St. Mark's Square is a historical place, so you need to respect its rules and traditions. For example, feeding pigeons here is prohibited. You can get a fine for this. Venice is a city on water, so a walk along the canals is a must-do part of any trip here. You can choose a gondola, a vaporetto water bus, or just walk along the bridges and streets. Gondola is a traditional Venetian boat, a symbol of the city. A gondola ride is a romantic but expensive attraction. If you want to save money, you can choose a vaporetto, a water bus that goes along the main canals. The term gondola has been around since the 11th century, but the boat's supposed predecessor was the scala, a slender, flat-bottomed Roman boat. Although it had a much wider and more symmetrical design than the modern gondola, it had the advantage of being able to navigate the vast network of winding Venetian canals with ease, a challenge for any vessel. As Venice became an important world trading city in the 16th century and its population subsequently increased, the Scala became less suitable for navigating the crowded canals and lagoons of Venice. And gradually the design of the boat began to change. The shape of the boat became dramatically longer and narrower, with its ends partially protruding out of the water. By the 1800s, the gondola had stretched to its current state. A typical Venetian gondola is now about 36 feet long and weighs about 770 pounds. The iconic, asymmetrical banana shape we know today gradually took shape in the early 20th century and has remained unchanged since. With its sleek silhouette, the gondola quickly became one of the easiest and most popular ways to get around Venice. Soon after, as the gondola's popularity grew, it became one of the most stylish modes of transportation. New models were equipped with elaborate decorations and luxurious finishes, attracting wealthy merchants and dignitaries eager to show off their wealth and social status on the Grand Canal. A gondola is nothing without a gondolier, who is often as much a part of the attraction as the boat ride itself. Traditionally, the gondolier profession is considered male, but in 2009, the first gondolier license in history was issued to a woman. As for songs, unfortunately, few modern gondoliers sing, and the rumor that they pass a singing exam is just a funny myth. Although some guests of Venice may be lucky enough to hear an Italian song performed by their gondolier, I must say, it is unforgettable. When you sail out onto the Grand Canal in the light of the setting sun and there is incredible beauty all around, which you have previously seen only in the movies, and behind you you hear something like "Oh, my sunshine," or "Summer of Love," it seems that dreams come true, life is wonderful and you have found yourself in a fairy tale. It is not hard to guess that the singing gondolier also receives generous tips. Walking along the narrow streets of Venice, you can discover many secrets: small bridges, hidden courtyards, ancient churches, cozy cafes. Just let yourself get lost and enjoy the beauty of this city. Pay attention to the details: masks on the walls of houses, flowers on balconies, reflections in the water. All this creates the unique atmosphere of Venice. Beautiful Venice, standing on the water, is known to Italians and representatives of other countries as the City of Bridges. This name is quite understandable. The city has about 400 bridges connecting 117 small islands over 150 canals. Some of these links have received interesting and unusual names. Some stand out for their appearance, some attract certain tourists. But today we will talk about one of the most famous and significant bridges of the city, Rialto. The Rialto Bridge is one of the most famous bridges in Venice, a symbol of the city. It connects the two banks of the Grand Canal and offers a stunning view of the surrounding area. The Rialto Bridge was built in the 16th century, and since then it has become one of the most popular places in Venice. It is always crowded, but this does not prevent you from enjoying the beauty of this place. In the Middle Ages, you couldn't move around Venice as freely as you can today. At the beginning of the 12th century, the two sides of the Grand Canal were connected only by a pontoon bridge, which was first a few boats, then a wooden platform. The city developed, and in 1250 the first wooden bridge was built, which became the predecessor of the Rialto. The Rialto acquired its modern appearance in the 16th century. Time after time, the masters of Venice repaired and rebuilt the bridge, near which a food market was located, attracting a lot of local residents. Only in 1591, a stone structure was thrown across the main canal of the city, the creation of which, according to the design of Antonio da Ponte, took 3 years due to the uneven bottom of the lagoon. Having won the tender, he created an arch structure unique for its time, which still amazes tourists with its beauty and originality. Rialto stands on 12,000 piles, is 48 meters long and 22 meters wide. Shortly after the opening of the renovated bridge in 1591, the city authorities allowed ships to pass under Rialto. Due to its exceptional architectural value, it has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1987. There are 24 shops on the bridge, just like in the old days. It is a real market: fish, fruit, jewelry, fur, souvenir. On Sundays the shops are closed, so there are fewer people. You can enjoy a leisurely walk and take panoramic photos with views of the picturesque Canal of Venice. The Rialto Bridge offers a beautiful view of the Grand Canal and the buildings located along its banks. If you want to avoid the crowds, it is better to come to the Rialto Bridge early in the morning or late in the evening. The most important attraction of the Rialto Bridge is its atmosphere. Over the course of several centuries, a special national spirit of this place has been formed, which cannot be expressed in words. Even if you are not going to spend money on shopping, it is very interesting to watch how the locals do it. It is in such places that you begin to understand the country and its inhabitants much faster. Not far from Venice are the islands of the Venetian lagoon, each with its own unique atmosphere and history. We will visit two of the most famous islands, Murano and Burano. Murano is an island famous for its Murano glass, sometimes called Venetian glass. Here you can see how the famous glass is made and buy unique souvenirs. Don't forget to visit the workshops and see how the craftsmen work. Murano is such a beautiful island that you should definitely visit it if you are in Venice. Murano is made up of several small islands connected by bridges and crisscrossed by canals, creating an atmosphere similar to Venice but with a much more relaxed pace of life. However, it is glass that has brought Murano its greatest fame. In 1291, Venetian glassmakers were ordered to move their workshops to Murano because of the danger of fires in the city. This move not only protected Venice, but also helped make Murano a center of glass art. Glass workshops and manufactories still operate here today, with the same emphasis on quality and tradition as in centuries past. Murano glassblowers guarded the secrets of their craft for a long time. A glassblower who left the island was considered a traitor and could be killed by order of the Council of Ten. Murano was a master at making things that were inaccessible to anyone in Europe, primarily mirrors and glasses. During the Renaissance, when it became fashionable to be closer to nature, aristocrats built themselves summer houses on Murano. On the island, you can visit several glass factories where traditional glass-making techniques are still demonstrated. Seeing hot molten glass being transformed by a master glassblower into an elegant vase, gemstone, or chandelier is a unique experience. One of the most popular stops is the Glass Museum, which tells the story of glassmaking from its inception to the present day. The museum is filled with fascinating exhibits, from exquisite Venetian mirrors to intricate glass sculptures. But Murano is not only glass. The island also has historical attractions. Before Napoleon Bonaparte arrived with his all-consuming and destructive army, there were 18 parishes and monasteries on the island. Today, only 3 churches remain completely intact. One of them is the minor Basilica of Santa Maria e Donato, a Romanesque Byzantine structure dating back to the 7th century, with its current appearance dating back to the 12th century. The vault and walls of the basilica are decorated with beautiful Byzantine mosaics that reflect the light and create a unique atmosphere of sacred space. Particularly noteworthy is the mosaic floor, made up of small stones in beautiful patterns and color combinations. The basilica is dedicated to the Virgin Mary and Saint Donatus, Bishop of Euboea in Greece, whose relics are said to rest here. Legend has it that Saint Donatus once killed a dragon, and the basilica contains bones believed to be the remains of this mythical creature. Although modern archaeologists believe that these are the bones of a large prehistoric animal, the dragon story gives the place a mystical aura that attracts visitors from all over the world every year. Another surviving church is St. Peter the Martyr, built in 1348. As in many other Italian churches, here you can see works of art, works by masters of the Venetian school of painting. Tintoretto, presumably, he painted the Baptism of Christ, Giovanni Bellini, Paolo Veronese. Murano can be called a smaller and slightly more worn-out copy of Venice. The island of Murano is even unofficially called Little Venice. Like Venice itself, Murano is not one island, but several, and they are separated by canals of various sizes. The largest, like in Venice, is called Grande. It's hard to believe, but until the 19th century, Murano was buried in paradise bushes of fruit gardens and flowers, until most of the trees were cut down to build residential buildings, although some things still remind us of those times. Perhaps the most beautiful and memorable place in Murano is the central square, where the clock tower and the unusual shimmering in all shades of azure glass thorn with a very beautiful name. Not all de luz in una cometa de vetro Christmas of light in a glass comet are located. This glass star comet, created by master glass blower Simon Senides for the Christmas holiday in 2008, attracts the attention of all tourists without exception and decorates most postcards from Murano. Murano is an island in the Venetian lagoon, which, along with Rialto, the largest island on which the historical part of Venice is located, the islands of Murano and Lido, is the most famous and popular among tourists. Murano is an island famous for its colorful houses. It is one of the most picturesque islands of the Venetian lagoon. Here you can stroll along the narrow streets, take beautiful photos and buy lace products. This small island, located 40 minutes by boat from Venice, is famous for its colorful houses. Each of them glows in different colors, creating an almost fairytale-like picture. It is said that this tradition arose so that fishermen returning home from the sea could easily find their home even in thick fog. Even today, the islanders have to follow strict rules regarding the color of their houses. New paint jobs are allowed only after consultation with the municipal authorities. Besides its colorful streets, Murano is also famous for its lace-making art. This traditional craft has a long history on the island, dating back to the 16th century. In the past, Murano lace was famous throughout Europe, and its production was considered a very prestigious business. Today, you can see unique creations in the Lace Museum or just stop by one of the local shops where this ancient art is still preserved. Murano is also an oasis of peace. Unlike noisy Venice, you won't encounter crowds of tourists here, which gives you the opportunity to stroll along the quiet streets and enjoy the beauty of the surrounding area in peace. A trip to the islands is a great way to see Venice from a different perspective and enjoy the beauty of the Venetian lagoon. Venetian cuisine is a combination of traditional Italian dishes and local seafood. Be sure to try cicchetti Venetian appetizers, fresh seafood and real Italian ice cream. Venice is a seaside city, so fish and seafood play an important role in the local cuisine. You can find dishes made from squid, sardines, crabs, and other seafood delicacies. Cicchetti are small appetizers served in Venetian bars Baccari. Seafood appetizers are especially popular, as cuttlefish, oysters, octopus, and shrimp are excellently prepared here. It is a great way to try different flavors and spend time in pleasant company. Venice is famous for its seafood, so be sure to try pasta with seafood or fresh grilled fish. And for dessert, real Italian ice cream. There are more than 500 types of it. This delicacy is tender and soft, made only from natural ingredients, and served with pieces of fruit. In addition to ice cream, you will be treated to prune tortino, baccoli biscuit cookies, pancakes with rice, honey and pumpkin filling. Tiramisu. Venice is the birthplace of this famous dessert. In Venice you will also be offered a large selection of wines. These are red Valpolicella and Bardolino, white Soave and many others. Be sure to try the Bellini cocktail, which is made from peach puree and Prosecco wine. It was invented in Venice and named after the famous artist. Try to find small, local trattorias away from the tourist areas for a more authentic experience. Venice is a city full of secrets and hidden places that only the locals know. Try to find out about them to get a deeper understanding of the city. One of these secrets is the Libreria Acqua Alta bookstore, where books are stored in gondolas, bathtubs, and boats to save them from floods. This is one of the most unusual places in Venice. Another interesting place is the Cantarini del Bovolo staircase, which offers a stunning view of Venice. It is a hidden gem that is worth visiting. Just walk around the city, turn off the tourist routes, and you will definitely discover your own secrets of Venice. Venice is not only a beautiful city, but also a city facing many problems. Among them are mass tourism, floods, and the outflow of local population. It is important to be aware of these issues and visit Venice responsibly, respect its culture, and help preserve its uniqueness for future generations. Despite all the difficulties, Venice remains a city of hope and inspiration, a symbol of beauty and sustainability. Venice is a city that needs to be felt, not just seen. It is a place that remains in the heart forever. I hope this video has inspired you to visit this magical city. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and write in the comments what you liked most about Venice. Arrivederci.